back. I'm going to look at The Thin Red Line. Now, if you saw my Orphans video, you know that my father passed away. So I did the film I watched before that event, the series film I watched before that event for Orphans, but also I'm going to watch the series when I watched after. This is the first, like, what I'd call a serious film that I watched. And it was very helpful, actually, because it is a soulful film. It's about war and man and war and the creators of war. And I was going to cover it for a while, but I never got around to it. So now I did. And it was a really good one to watch if you're trying to return to watch serious films after a difficult time. And it is one of my favourite Malick films. It's still one of my favourite Malick films. Now, this it's a 20th Century Fox release, which is now Disney. But this was when it was still Fox. But people are saying, a friend said he had this, but he was going to buy the Criterion. He's like, you don't need to, because it's the same thing. It's the same extras, the same transfer. Criterion did Thin Red Line in America. Then Fox licensed all the material for their release of the Thin Red Line in Britain, including the transfer. Released it here, and then eventually later on, Criterion released the Thin Red Line and the Criterion collection over here. But it's the same disc. You get the same extras, everything's the same. So if you've got this one, you don't need to get the Criterion one unless you want the pretty cover. Which I do, but I don't feel the need to rebuy the same thing at the moment. So we'll see how it goes. I'm kind of waiting to see if they do a 4K transfer. I'm kind of hoping for that down the line. Because that's a film that really needs it. Now, I watched this one on projector, which is what you really need. The thing with the Thin Red Line is, yeah, you can watch it on TV, but it works better projected. It works better on the big screen. The big screen gives you so much more of the atmosphere and the pace of the film. In the small screen, it's interesting, it's beautiful. But in the big screen, there's an atmosphere that goes through the film and fuses itself through the film. There's a sense that everything makes more sense. It's less cerebral, because the one thing you lack when you watch films and TV is you can bring in more of the intellectual side of things, and that becomes prominent in the film. If there's a film with lots of ideas, but sometimes you lose the sense of the kind of impact of the visuals and how the visuals place together. And it really affects this one because the visuals are really well prepared and they really tell a story. And there's a lot of things about contrast between different cultures and different environments that float through the film that are very important, which are diluted when you just see it on TV. You don't get the same effect. Now, the film is based on a novel about the Battle of Guatemala, and this is a Terrence Malick version. There was a version in the 60s that was apparently not that great, a respectable version, but it wasn't the same thing. Terrence Malick took the idea, wrote a script that everyone liked, and he got financing for like $50 million in the late 90s, which was quite a lot of money. He had some big stars attached. This is Malick's biggest film. He's never done a film as big as this. I don't think he ever will. He tends to keep his budget down so that he's plenty of like power to shape the film to where he wants it to be, so that he can make stuff like Song to Song or Night of Cups and not cost much money, and he can get actors in them because they want to work with Malick. Doesn't really mean they have to get paid a fortune for this one. So he gets good actors, and he tends to go lower budget. This was his exception, and even then, it came out 6 months after Saving Private Ryan, and Saving Private Ryan won the awards. This one got nominated, and since that's come out, it's always been like you have the Thin Red Line versus Saving Private Ryan thing. I'm obviously the Thin Red Line camp, but the thing is, loads of us in this camp tend to absolutely loathe Saving Private Ryan unnaturally. Like, it feels like we're like, no, it's much better than that shit. And it's like, no, Saving Private Ryan's a very traditional World War II movie. It has its problems. I don't love it, but I think there's a lot of good stuff in it. It's not worthy of hate. There's some nice things. There's some things I think are kind of awkward and like I wish I'd done that. But there's a gem. I mean, essentially, we take away a couple of the flaws. It's essentially it's a fun World War II movie. Well, Thin Red Line is much more ambitious. World War II is the setting, but it's not really what it's about. What it's about is about the actual effect of war on a person, and it's also about the effect of war on a variety of people and how different people react to war. Because in this film, this is not war as heck. This is war as hell, and you see how it affects people from the top all the way down to the grunts. So you do see that the people in charge and how they're breathing down the neck of Nick Nolte, who's the lieutenant or the colonel, who's the guy in charge of the operation, and he's always been overlooked for promotion. So this is his chance to show what he can do, which means he's going to be tough. Then he's tough on the people below him, like the captains and the sergeants who are running the actual show, who are taking the men through the battle, and he's going to ride them hard to get his way, which means sometimes it means there's a lack of consideration for the hell that the soldiers are about to go through, and there's a sense of we need to push onwards no matter what. In some ways that's true, so they've got momentum, but in other ways it's not so true because sometimes they act before they think, and it can lead to a lot of deaths. And Nolte early on always makes a mistake that would cause many more deaths, and then he takes it out on his captain, played by Elias Koteas. And probably this was kind of his breakthrough role in the kind of mainstream. He'd already done things for Atom Eton, but he had not really jumped through. He'd had some success the year before with Crash, but that was a limited success. But this is his first film he'd made that had a lot of impact because a lot of people had seen it. And from then on, he became like a well-known actor who could pick up parts. He'd been in the Ninja Turtles movies as well earlier on, but that was a small part. And honestly, he was an actor who never really came into his own until like the mid-90s. Before that, he was always a bit wooden, and then suddenly he relaxed and became a much more interesting actor. And so he's kind of one of the hearts of the film. The other heart is Wit, played by Jim Caviezel, who's a guy who has a lot of issues. He's fascinated by death. He's fascinated by the army, but he also feels the need to run away from death, run away from the army. He's based a kind of schizophrenic soul, really, who sees the beauty in life, but also he's fascinated by the violence and anger of the army. He tries to run away from it, but then when the fight starts, he wants to get back into the fight, and then he ends up being into most of the campaigns you see, and he's a very good fighter, and he's murdering people left, right, and centre. So he's a schizophrenic feel to him, and that's something you don't get as much when you see it in TV, is the idea of just how vicious he is actually when he's fighting. I mean, he's not a monster, but he is there is a switch that switches over to someone who can effectively kill people without a problem. I don't think you get the same effect of that on the TV, because the one thing the film has in the big screen is you have a screen and you have lots of people there. And in the olden days with a widescreen format, the big criticism was you'd have a lot of actors not doing much on the screen, the big screen, to fill the screen. There was a lot of boring people standing there. In this one, Malick knows what he's doing, so you'd have a lot of actors doing stuff in the background that informs the rest of the film that he's just not focused on. In the smaller screen, you don't notice as much. I mean, one of the big controversy of this film when it was first released was Adrian Brody had a big part in this film, and a lot of it was cut back in the film. And it was like, he's barely in the film. And if you watch the film on the TV, you can see, oh yeah, he's barely in the film. You watch the big screen, he's in the background of so many shots, and he's doing things, so many shots. He's still a really important part of the film. He's just not as dominating. And I think it's because, just from watching the film this time, was he did such a good job of suggesting that part just non-verbally that I think some of the verbalization was probably not needed. And Malick probably realised that he's just taking up time for stuff that Brody's already showing you in his body language and his interactions with people. This guy's terrified of fighting. He's moving forward, he's moving through. And it was meant to be about him learning how to kill. Instead, it's not about that, it's just about someone who is dealing with the trauma of all these murders taking place and is not really up to it. But he's still pushing through. And it's much more of a significant look at the typical person who goes through this hell, and who maybe never feels they're up to it. And it becomes a really moving portrayal because it's someone who everyone knows has problems dealing with this, but he keeps on going. And it becomes a really interesting portrayal. But it's just that some of the more mechanical things, like a guy learning to do his first kill in this war zone, might have been a bit too stock, and maybe it came across to Malick as it's a bit too obvious, and everyone else is doing these much more mature things. And this is kind of an old-fashioned plot mechanic, and he had all this footage of Brody doing interesting things in the background, so he just stuck in that. And that's kind of the approach that Malick has sometimes, which is why sometimes his scripts get changed as they go. It's a way of actually getting rid of it's sort of what Kieslowski did, was getting rid of the excess cliches that are comfort food for you. And it's like, no, what's the essence of this? Let's go Bressonian. What's the essence? And just take away everything else but the essence. And I think some actors, if they're in that part, if they do a good job, it goes against them in some way. So you got Witt trying to work out his own sense of violence, his own sense of, is there anything beyond? Is there death? What is death? You've got Noel to being a careerist. You've also got Ben Chaplin playing a guy who's got a very close connection to his wife, and that's what keeps him going through the hell of Guatemala, basically. And the first 2/3 is you see that bond, and then some of the bonds are ripped away from him as she asks for a divorce in the final third. And you see what it does to him. It just hollows him out completely. Because Chapman's in the last third of the movie, but he becomes almost like the Brody thing where he's there, he says things, but you sense this. With him, there's nothing behind the eyes, he's just trying to survive. And before, he was trying to be a noble man. And it's almost like what war does to people, it tears away all their higher aspirations, and it replaces it with something else. And it doesn't replace it with something good or bad, it depends on the person. But it is a hell that you have to try and get through. And so you see people like Les Cote's character, who knows what his job is, but he's also trying to be humane in the circumstances, so he becomes something of a good figure. You have Sean Penn's character who's a sergeant. He's trying to protect his men as much as possible, but also get the job done. So he's a realist. He's like, this is all about property. This is not about us. We just have to try and survive it. And he's fascinated by Caviezel's character, because Caviezel's character does have some aspirations beyond that attitude. You have other smaller parts, like Woody Harrelson turns up as the kind of badass, like sergeant who's in charge, and he dies by a simple mistake. And the whole idea is there's lots of characters you see, and a lot get murdered in a brutal way. Jared Leto shows up for like 10 minutes, and you see him helping her go up the hill, and he's instantly killed. And that's what the film does. It actually introduces the characters and lets you go through all these characters, and you start to get to know them all, and then some of them just get killed, and it's like, that's what war's like. Like, it's unsentimental. And the film's about war. The idea that some people are lucky and some people aren't. And by the end of it, you get to all these emotions that go through the war. And then ultimately, the kicker is, they're leaving this island, they've conquered this island, they're going to the next one. It's going to be another set of hell, and half the characters are like, probably going to die. Because this is a war machine that's just churning through these characters, and that's it. And it just is that idea of what war is. War is dehumanizing, but also you get a lot of grace from different people. You get like Caviezel and Ben Chaplin and the John Cusack character going up to take the thing at the top of the hill. That if this 6-man squad can take them all these guys out, it means hundreds will not die in this battle. Because if they do a full force of frontal thing, a lot of people will die. If they do the stealth thing, maybe these people will die. And it's like the idea of they're willing to sacrifice themselves for these others to try and get through this situation. And you see Caviezel, even though he's viewed as a coward at times for deserting, he's all gung-ho to go and do this. And there's this kind of weird interaction within his own soul that's hard to work out, which is good because they keep Witt's a character you spend most time with, but they keep him a mystery still. There's still mysterious aspects to the character you can't quite work out, but that's what's really good about it. And this was Caviezel's big star-making role. After that, you get lots of parts, and some are good, some are bad, but this was like, that's what made him. And Adrian Brody actually came out of this. After this, he ended up doing a lot of other parts like the pianist and things, and he was fine. And everybody came out well. I mean, John Cusack has only a few scenes in the film, but including the big one in the hill. But he has stuff with Nick Nolte, which is terrific. Nick Nolte's amazing because he's playing a guy who's so embarrassing to be around at times because he's so needy. And Nolte plays into that. Nolte is not scared of looking that way. And you've just got lots of smaller characters throughout, which are... John Savage is a guy who's a sergeant who loses his mind in the battle, just loses his mind. And one of the points of the film is, this is, for a lot of these career soldiers, they'd never seen a battle. They could do all they want about training and getting ready, but not that they had never seen a battle, and as soon as they saw the velocity of the battle, some of them went nuts. You know, others get injured and said, and one character who ran away with Caviezel at the start, and then they both get caught and they come back, and he was in different duties, and he gets his knee shot, and he's like, well, that's fine, I'm out the war now. It's lots of weird things like this. They've also, John C. Reilly's a character who has started to feel nothing as he goes through the war, because it's the only way his brain can survive it, the horrors of the war. You have all these elements intellectually in the film, but also you have the physicality of the film. The film goes from the nature in this small village before the war comes, then you have the military machine, which is very cold, and you have all these characters try to make sense of what's going to happen to them in this machine. Then you go into back to nature, but these men in nature, and then the war are hitting them as they deal with the war, and then you get up these hills, these beautiful hills, crane shots up these hills, which are wonderful. And so you have the beauty of nature, but you also have the ferocity of man, the complexity of man, really. Complexity, and you've got all these voiceovers talking about nature and why are men killing each other, but it's more it's not like a judgmental thing. It's a question: why are we doing this to each other? What's going on? And his idea was, what is this, the war in the heart of nature? That's the whole point of the film. But at the end of it, essentially, you go through the war, you see the ferocity of the war, you see the Americans murdering the Japanese once they've surrendered, because some soldiers have just lost it completely. And even then, after that, they're trying to make sense of their own actions, because it's like, some people went mad temporarily, and then they look down and what they've done is like, what have I done? Is this me? And you've got this sense of war brings out so much in the person. So the film is about a lot, and eventually it goes back to the idea of nature gets tainted by war, and then when the war machine moves on, nature returns and goes its own way. So this is a wonderful film. It's just great. I've just scratched the surface of it. So I recommend you go and watch the film, but on the biggest screen as possible for your own good, because you're not going to get everything the other way. So that's me for now on this one. It's one of my favourite films. It's just stunning. So, bye.